She always she had Kent's son.
Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. It is November 15th at 5:15, and this is our special meeting today. We do have a quorum. We have everybody here. It's great. Are there any public comments pertaining to this meeting? No. Okay. Then the first thing we will do is canvass the returns and declare the results of the trustee election held November 2nd, 2021. I, the undersigned, the presiding officer of the canvassing authority for Gatesville ISD general election held on the 2nd day of November 2021, Coryell and Bell County, Texas, do hereby certify that the following is a total of all votes received by each candidate and votes received for and against each measure as shown by the precinct attorneys. I further certify that the following vote totals include early voting votes by precinct received under section 87.1231 of the Texas Education Code. For Board of Trustees, Charles Alderson received 499 votes. Linda Maxwell received 537 votes. Pat Aslan received 323 votes. And I think I passed this down if anybody wants to look at it. They can see it.
Everybody's looking closely at it.
Oh, yeah.
Really studying.
You can pass back there. She needs to.
Oh, she. I read this.
Yes.
I, Mary Ann Lee, President of the Gatesville ISD Board of Trustees, Texas, met with the GISD Board of Trustees, sitting as the canvassing board to canvass the general election of November 2nd, 2021 on November 15th, 2021 at Gatesville, Texas. I certify that the figures on the tally sheets correspond with the figures on the returns. Witness my hand this 15th day of November 2021. Okay, signed statement. Okay. I'll sign this and give you your certificates.
And then we'll need to go ahead and do the recommendation too.
Pardon?
Go ahead and do the recommendation.
Okay, okay,
If you want to just read this, right?
yes. Where is it?
Right down here.
The recommendation is that the canvass is complete. I move to adopt the order declaring the results of the trustee election held November 2nd, 2021, re-electing incumbents Charles Alderson and Linda Maxwell. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Jimmy? Okay.
The way Charles came.
Any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries unanimously. All right. So they get their certificates from now. Right, Tara?
Congratulations.
Charles Alderson.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Linda Maxwell. Congratulations. I need you to please sign this statement. Aren't you going to do this, Tara?
Yeah, but they sign the statement of
Yes.
office, sir, and then they'll just give it back to you.
We have to say that.
Sign yours. Okay, I'm tired.
And then I will give it.
Okay. Can you sign these, please?
Y'all can come stand up here if you want to.
No, when we go into executive session, let's see. Yeah, before the executive session.
Okay, I think you need to go around.
I'll take that.
Thanks, man.
Each one of those on step.
You can just do it here.
Now, don't say too many lines at once.
Why not? I haven't worked out. Because we're all learning.
See, Jane.
So I'll just read, and then you can just repeat.
Okay.
Raise your right hand. And obviously where your name is, you'll state your name. Okay. And the name, and by the authority of the United States of Texas. You're going to repeat.
I, Linda Maxwell.
No, you're going to, as I read, you'll repeat. You'll just read. And the name,
I don't see where you
and by
said
the
it.
authority.
It's not on here.
That's not on there.
Oh, she gave you the wrong one.
Oh my gosh.
What am I wrong with saying?
Sorry, that's Charles, I think.
Oh,
Did you get that?
are you sure?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
There we go.
Yes.
Oath of office.
We'll go over. it.
Okay.
Okay.
Now you're going to repeat.
Okay.
In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas.
Wait a minute, mine still doesn't say that.
And the name.
Here.
Oh. That's the heading, not the title.
We're actually enlisting them in the army.
All right.
So go ahead and repeat that.
No,
No.
from you. In the name and by the authority of the
Gotta
state
read
of
Texas.
Texas.
I,
I,
Charles Alderson,
Linda Maxwell.
do solemnly say or affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of School Board Trustee of the state of Texas and will to
the best of my
ability
ability
preserve, protect,
protect, and
defend the
defend
Constitution and laws of the United States of this state.
So help me
So
God.
help me God.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll just need y'all to sign it right here for me. That's fine. It can be done either way. It can be done either way.
Sorry, y'all.
Okay.
So just sign
Right
it.
there.
Right there. I'm sorry. At the top, at the top.
See, it doesn't say, whatever. He says that.
So these go in the folder. You told me that this afternoon, it did not come through. Sorry.
It's working. We're getting there.
And I'll sign some. Thank you.
Closed session.
Yes. So now we are going to, it is 5:23, we are going to go into closed session and, or executive session and reorganize the board. So we'll be back in a little bit. Okay, we're back from an executive session at, I've got 5:30. Got it? 5:30?
She doesn't have to do that.
Okay, and we are going to take nominations for officers, and so is there a nomination for a president?
I nominate Charles Amen.
Charles, is there a second? Okay, any questions, any further nominations? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, you're not voting?
Do I have to vote?
Yes, you do. You gotta do
It's kind of hard to look.
something. Okay, motion carries. Charles, we may swap places. Or do I go ahead and finish the rest of them?
Either way.
I could,
Yeah, you can
okay,
just-
let me just.
Please.
Any nominations for vice president?
I nominate Charles Alderson.
Charles Alderson, any more nominations? Is there a second for Charles?
I second.
Okay, any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Okay, VP. Nominations for secretary.
I nominate Cheyenne Catt.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any other nominations? All right. All those in favor, raise your hand. All right. Now we swap places. Oh, could you swap your machines?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that your? Would you pass it to Baer? I think I stole his pen.
Okay. So Charles, let's see what's first thing.
So when did the last meeting adjourn? I need that documentation. We adjourned the last meeting at.
Oh, okay, meeting adjourned 5:32.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
I've got 5:32, we'll call the meeting to order of the meeting that's scheduled for November 15th at 5:30 p.m. At this time, we'll stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. Charles, would you do that for me?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Calvin, would you lead us in a prayer?
Father, we come today, Father, thank you for the many blessings that you've given us. Father, we thank you for each and every one of us in this room and each and every one who serve this board. Father, I ask that you continue to bless this great school and the teachers and all the students and everyone who has worked for the school. Father, we ask that you continue to bless us and help and guide us and teach us your ways. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
At this time, we move to the public comments portion of the agenda. Is there anyone here with a public comment? No one has signed up. We'll move to student spotlight to be presented by Barrett Pollard, Superintendent.
Well, tonight we've got a very special young man here, Brantley Schutz. Brantley is a young little guy. He's in pre-K with Miss Marshall. And he did a very sweet thing here about a month ago. We had a family, two of our teachers, their home burned down. And so we started raising money for them. And Brantley was so moved by that, even as a young little guy, he took it upon himself to start his own fundraising effort for them. And in the midst of all that, he raised like over $1,000. And so, because he was so worried about them. And so, what a great example of a caring, compassionate young man. Well, makes you feel good about the future when you have little ones like that that are already worried about people, worried about adults. And so, we wanted to make sure we honored Brantley tonight and give him a certificate, and hopefully he'll get his picture in the paper, Jeff.
Absolutely.
Blown up. I already look blown up, but it'll look, yeah, it'll look good. So, Bradley, you would come up here and get your picture taken? We'll give you
Won't you pick him up?
That is amazing.
Yeah. I'm gonna get down.
There you go.
Let's see. Whoop. There we go.
On get down, Skip.
Yeah.
All right. On two. 1, 2. 1, 2. I'm going to take one more. 1, 2. Thank you.
Now, if somebody would help me up.
The next thing on our agenda is a staff spotlight, and that's to be presented by Barrett Pollard, Superintendent.
Well, we have two tonight that we want to honor, and it's funny, when I reached out to both Greg Keaton and Karen Baer, they both acted surprised and like, well, why us? Almost was kind of the reaction I think I got, but I'll start with Greg. He went to school here, and only left for a short time, went to McMurray. And then he came back and started his coaching career, and he has done a great job. And so, as a coach, he has a big impact on the young men. And so we wanted to honor him tonight. And he's a real unsung hero. Plus, he's helping with enrollment because they're going to have a baby. And so, that's really the real reason we're honoring you. Morgan, thank you for your service. That's great stuff. But what a great couple for GISD. Wonderful, Greg. So we want to get you a certificate as well. Calvin wanted to say something as well.
Well, I just, there's people in life that view life as a spectator, and then there's those that make things happen. Greg is one of the nicest people. I always say there's 3 nice people in Gatesville, and Greg is always one of them. When I had cancer, Greg called me, and that meant a lot. And he's one of the, coaches people look up to, and I just see so many kids look up to him, and I just want to thank you and appreciate you.
Yeah. Greg's truck is one of the last ones here every night. So he spends a lot of time here with the kids. So, Greg, you want to come on up? Get your picture taken. Not squatting down.
It's nothing. All right, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Thank you.
Well, last but definitely not least is Karen Baer, another GHS graduate. And it seems like every week I'm asking Karen to do something extra. Here in the past month, we've gotten her to have the kids do artwork for the boardroom. Region 12 called and said we'd love to have student artwork for our building, so we asked Karen. And then out of the blue, the storage unit behind the high school said, well, we want to decorate our storage unit. Karen, could you help with that? And so she's always going above and beyond. She's well loved by the students. She's a great asset to the district, and we're sure glad you're here.
Thank you.
Karen, did you want to say anything?
Well, I enjoy working with our high school students. It's a joy every day just to greet them.
Yeah.
Right,
Well, Karen, we're sure glad you're here.
so. Okay.
All right, let's take a picture.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next thing on our agenda is a public hearing on the School First Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas, presented by Daryl Frazier, our Chief Financial Officer.
Oh, and before we do that, Charles, I wanted to, Jimmy made a good point. We wanted to recognize some donors. We had some folks that really helped contribute to our transportation Friday to the football game. And so I wanted to recognize the folks that helped with that. Bruce's Electric, which was Markey and Lucille Necessary. The Hornet Touchdown Club, Rudy Insurance, Ronnie Sullins and the First National Bank, Brian Edwards and Texas First Agency, Hornet Radio, the Allman family, Steve and Karen Howard, and then Luke Sullins with Tejas Real Estate. So a lot of generous people in the community helped us make that happen. So very appreciative of them.
Amen.
And I will also let the guys that were recognized, if you want to leave, you're free to leave. So, but this next part should be exciting. Daryl, come on out. Miss Sharon, would you mind bumping my head a little bit that way? Let's see, where did Daryl go?
He's right there.
Okay. Daryl, I think we're ready for the first.
School first?
Ready? Yep.
Getting kind of used to this.
I hope we can keep it up. This is the 19th year for the School First. And as long as I've been here since 2010 in this position, we scored a perfect score. And which is 100, and which gives us the rating of superior achievement. And so I'm going to quickly go through the benchmarks that they use to determine this. There's 20 indicators, I think, this year. 20 indicators. And toward the back, you got up on the screen there. Okay, so scroll through about 3 or 4 pages. There's the indicators. There's the 20 indicators. And then following that, keep on going.
Perfect score, Daryl.
Mm-hmm. So I say, getting used to it. Be careful. They're getting tougher and tougher every time. This next one's going to be tough too. These are the statistics for the state. So you can see that, and I have the little arrows going either up or down. There were less districts that passed in 20, and this basically is a report that's based on the August 31, 1920 audit report. So we're currently working on the August 31, 2021 audit report, but this is like a year ago. And so that's what this is based on. So they had a few less pass, a few more to fail. It's not very many, but it's a few. And then you can see there in terms of the districts, how many districts scored in the superior, along with the percentage. We had less in the superior group, and of course more in the other 3 after that. So that's statewide comparison. Okay, next. Determination of rating. This is your superior rating. You would have had to score a 90 or 100. And that's what we got, a superior. And then there's the ceiling indicators, they call them. And then this one is the determination of points, which you want to look at in comparison to, as we look over each of the points. For instance, right there, number 1 was AFR on time. So it's due in January, and we did meet that January deadline, so we passed, but it was later than the prior year. So I'll give myself a down arrow. So that's how this works. Because last year we got it out quicker than this year. This coming year, we're looking probably in another January. The way things are going, things are very slow with COVID and everything that's happened to us, me. And the second one there is a clean opinion. So you see like the dash, that's just, we got the same score as we did the year before. Adequate cash on hand, it shows you the amount, the 298 versus 291. And it went down a little bit. It'll go down more next year, believe me, with the high school reno. The current ratio went up. Revenues exceeded expenditures went up. The next one, adequate variance. Okay, this is the one where they were watching your budget to make sure you didn't have too much variance in the budget compared to what you originally budgeted. That was a little tricky one there. The long-term debt solvency was good, and we'll be talking about that here shortly, about something we'll be doing with the debt. Number 12 was the debt service ratio, which was good. So we're able to service all of our long-term debt in a good manner. 15% decline in enrollment did not happen. District ADA within range, and it was. Next. All right, so 16 through 20. 16 is the PEMS report. We have 2 reports that we deal with out of the business office. One is right now, we're working on the fall PEMS. You're probably well aware of the fall snapshot takes a picture of your demographics and your enrollment. And here they look at the budget. So we'll be submitting our budget to PEAMS, and they'll be running it through to make sure that it's okay. The numbers are fine, the way you coded it are okay, the ratios look good. And then the next one is we'll submit the audit after it's presented in January. We'll submit the audit to TEA through PEAMS, and then they're going to be checking it for accuracy. And so here is, you can get dinged if you don't have good accuracy. Good internal controls. That comes from the determination of the auditors. AFR free of non-compliance issues. That came from the auditors. Website has all the financial information posted. There's a number of things that we have to post as a business office, and we maintain all those postings. I got a little bit behind the summer, but we're back in shape. Let's see, the last one is timely discussion of property values. We had that discussion, I believe it was at the July board meeting budget workshop, where we talked about the timing difference, but this is really was more appropriate before TEA changed the way they do those. But now they're pretty current, and they're not a year behind like they used to be in terms of the taxation and the values that they use to determine our funding. So that's probably the last time you'll see it. I don't know, but that's that. So those are all the questions. And do you have any specific questions that you'd like to go more in depth?
Well, I got a question on that.
Mr. Jimmy?
Yeah, number 16, PEM.
Number 16.
PEIM.
Comparison to PEAMS?
Yeah, and all the rest of them over there in that right-hand column's got fail, no, and that one's got fail .03. What's that mean?
Okay, let's take a look at that one, 16. All right, so on this one, we got 10 points. Ceiling passed. You would have gotten 0 had you failed, which would have been above 3%. So they're talking about 3% discrepancies or errors in your PEAMS report compared to your actual.
I just
So
curious
we didn't
why
have
it
3%.
I just wondered why it didn't say no.
No, ours was actually having the ISD value right here in this column.
Okay,
I have the actual value, and 0.00.
I got you.
So they'd have to go out pretty far to get to anything
I got you.
of significance.
Thank you.
That's a good question. Any others?
Our high school snapshot gave us about 800 in the high school for next year.
The one that is coming up?
803.
803, so we stay a little lower than where we are now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be lower this year compared to last on this year's snapshot. And you can see that in the vital signs, what those enrollment numbers are doing. Fortunately, I think the attendance is coming back up. And TEA just issued kind of a reprieve for us in the first 6 weeks. And we'll be filing for that reprieve. It's kind of like a whole harmless, but it's not a whole harmless, but it's similar to that. So, hopefully things are going to get better with the attendance, especially. Enrollment, I don't know about that. It probably is what it is. But the attendance is one that we can surely hope we'll get up back close to the 95% on which our budget is projected. I think September we were looking at 88%. October on the vital signs, it seemed like it was around 90%. So it's like coming up, and which is good news. But then TEA has given us a little reprieve on those bad numbers from September. So that's going to be good news. And you saw on the vital signs besides that the little box on the top left, which tells you how far behind we are, that actually came down from about 2.25 to 1.75. So made some good progress in the last month. So you can sleep a little easier at night. Okay. Any other questions on the 20 points? No? Okay. The administration cost was in line. Number 13. Getting buried. Thought you'd be jumping up joy to joy on that one. All right, then there's some disclosures that we have to render to the public, and this is a public forum right now, and the public is invited to ask any questions as well, not just the board members. One of the things of disclosure is the superintendent's contract. So it is in this report, and this contract, I believe, was signed off on back earlier part of the year. But this is the contract that's in effect currently while we're giving this report today. And so that's the line that goes into the report. Number 2, we report reimbursements received by the superintendent and board members for the fiscal year 20. So this would involve last fiscal year, not this current fiscal year. And if I haven't already sent you the disclosure for this past fiscal year, I'll send that to you. I usually try to stay ahead because that way next year we're not fumbling around trying to chase you down. So here we have the amounts recorded by board member and superintendent, and mostly it's usually it's travel for board members, and this is pretty good actually compared to what I've seen in the past. So y'all done a good job.
That was Motel 6 and a lot of Burger King.
A lot of Burger King.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. These are frugal soup.
That's very low.
I gotta tell you. All right, the next one is number 4. Number 3, any outside compensation fees by the superintendent or professional consulting. So if he was traveling the world, making high dollar speeches, this is where he gets those numbers. But he's been staying pretty close to Gatesville and keeping his nose to the grind, staying on top of everything. Number 4. If any of the board members or superintendent has received gifts of 50 or more, those are disclosed here. And they're basically 0 across. And then also there was a business transaction. If any of the board members have had a business transaction with the school district last fiscal year, then that's disclosed. We had one board member that had a small service rendered to the school district out of his personal business. And any other information board trustees felt would be useful. We didn't have anything last year. We didn't put anything more here this year. So the next section there is the superintendent's contract. And that concludes the school's first report. So board, you should be proud of your school district. Did a good job. A lot of people work hard for this. It's not just me, it's a bunch of people. Thanks to the whole district doing this together.
Daryl and his crew, they work really hard and spend a lot of hours up here. And like you said, we can't take those perfect scores for granted because there's a lot of districts that don't get that. And it's hard to achieve that every year, so Daryl, thank you.
Thank you. Stay here for the next presentation?
I think so, Daryl.
Last time I went to sit down, you brought me back up.
Consent agenda.
Okay, the consent agenda is listed, item number 8, A through F. Does anybody want to pull any of those items? Do I have a motion that we accept the consent agenda? Linda Maxwell, seconded by Charles Voters. All 4? Anyone opposed? Okay, I'm going as fast as I could.
I hope you like what you saw there in the consent agenda. Okay, the next item to present to you is the 2021 summer feeding report for this past summer. And I have the board agenda information sheet, and then I have a financial report, 1 page, that follows that. This is, let's see, what did I say? This is the, which year is this? Each year. I thought I usually say that on there. We've been doing this for a long time. But I didn't indicate that. I did say that for the 5th year in a row that summer feeding program has turned a profit. Small profit this year, but nonetheless still a profit. And so if you look at the numbers, I have this year's numbers And they're on the left column. Last year's numbers are on the right column, and you'll see an increase or decrease. And that's the revenue and expenditures. This is more like an income statement. And then in the second half of the page is a breakdown of things like number of days served, number of meals served per day, and then the 3 months that we served, June, July, and August, and then the total. So, the thing that jumps out at you is that we served, it's like about 12,000 less meals this year than we did the prior year. And we did have a difficult summer with the transition between Sodexo and Southwest Food Service Excellence, SFE. And it wasn't necessarily anybody's fault, other than I'm going to kind of lay blame on TDA, Texas Department of Ag, because they're the ones that control this whole process. And we started working on this way back in the very first part of the year. And they kept changing the rules, changing the forms, and it went on an entire spring. And normally we would have had this done deal by April, but this went actually into June. And you know, what they did to school districts and the way they treated school districts and food management companies was pretty harsh. And they gave them really a hard time. It made it very difficult for a school district like us to make a transition between one company and the next. But we were forced, basically, because that was our year for the bid. Every 5 years you have to submit it for bids. So we had no choice. And of course, Southwest came in and they won the bid. So now it's a change in companies. But they made us go through so many hoops. Now, Southwest was at a disadvantage because by the time they got the word that they got the contract, we were almost at the beginning of the contract period, July 1. And so we were kind of behind the eight ball the whole summer. And summer feeding was one of those that was impacted. And we didn't serve near as many days. We had to get in necessary training. And so we basically made a decision for the month of August that we were going to cease the summer feeding and concentrate on getting ready for the fall, because we don't want the fall to blow up on us. And so Gatesville and SFE worked very hard in the summer getting ready for the fall and kind of put the summer feeding a little bit on the back burner as a result. And we cut down some of the days because we needed those days to train the staff. And it was just a whole new ballgame with our staff, with SFE. They do things very different. So that's the reason why you've had such a decline in the number of meals served. I'm sure we'll be back in the range of normality next summer. But for this year, it was a tough call. But personally, I want to blame a lot of it on TDA and how harsh they were on school districts like us and on the food service management companies. It was horrendous for them. And we were one of the first school districts to get approved. And even after we were approved, there's others districts that hadn't been approved. So I'm sure it was a mess all summer long. Payroll costs went up, actually. One of the things that we put a stop to was we discovered previously that there had been some, unclocked hours, labor hours being put in by our staff, managers and others. And we had to sit down heart to heart and say, we're not going to let that go on anymore. And
what Daryl
it's
was
not
saying,
right, for one thing.
Our staff is so good, what they would do, especially the managers, is that they would keep working, but they'd clock out. And we told them, don't do that. You know, I think they were worried about racking up too much costs. But that just shows you how good these people are. You know, that they're trying to do the district a favor, but we preach to them, please don't do that. You know, we don't need you to do that. Make sure you clock in.
So if you're wondering why, more payroll, I would attribute that specifically. But we're glad that we put a stop to that, and we'll continue to make sure that that stops, because I think they were being abused, to be quite frank with you. The professional services went down. You see that second line? Now that would be the fee to either Sodexo or SFE. So SFE's charge for the summer feeding program went down 18.5 from a year ago. So it is what it is. Do you have any specific questions? I think the ladies did a fantastic job on the days that they did serve. They still hustled. They still got kids everywhere, all over town. If they saw a congregation of kids, they'd go see them. They'd go bring them lunch or breakfast. And they didn't slow down on that part, but we did cut down the number of days. And that helped out tremendously on the morale of the staff, and also helping them get prepared for the new school year. So that's the financial report for the summer feeding program. Do you have any questions about that?
And Tracy Markham is here. Tracy's with Southwest. Yeah. And Tracy's one of our managers. She's been helping to transition and get us all lined out. We appreciate you, Tracy.
Anytime you all need anything, just come and see me, give me a call.
She's SFE area manager, operations manager. And she's spent a lot of time here. And she's good and very dedicated to Gatesville, making sure that we have a good transition to their company. And we appreciate her and all the others that she's brought in to help us. And they're super dedicated to Gatesville ISD, making sure that the food program is going to be a success.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
A little further down on the counter on 2020, where you have June, July, August, number of days served. Mine says June, there was 39 days served.
That was a long month, Charles.
Well, I understand. How do you get 39 days in the month of June?
There was May, they served in May. They served in May last year.
Oh, so it carried over from
They got
May.
an early start. Okay.
And they
That should have been May, June.
That makes sense.
Yeah, there's not 39 days.
I shouldn't say that's when Sodexo was here.
Yeah.
39.
It's 31.
Carried over from May and June. Okay.
Look, they send home weekend.
They weren't working 2 a day. Good observation, though. That it? No further questions?
For you.
Moving on to the investment policy. Each year at this time, it's always usually in November, come before you to present the investment policy. It's CDA, and there's a legal section and there's a local section. And as you very well know, the TASB, Texas Association, School Board Association, is the one that we contract with to manage our policies. And so all policy corrections, adjustments, amendments come through that service. And if you ever see any of these amendments, it came from them. Now we can make suggestions to them, particularly on local, legal, that's pretty much statewide. On the local, we can make suggestions. And so what they've done is they've updated this. I think the last update was actually a couple years ago. You can see on the bottom of the page, October 30 of 2019. So there have been no updates from TASB to either CDA legal or CDA local that we have to present. So this basically is the same investment policy that we've had for the last 2 years. Now there will be a resolution for the board to approve this policy, and that's here. It's a small sheet of paper. That's at the beginning of CDA local. And investment policy guides us in the way that we handle our investments for the school district. This is a part of the Public Funds Investment Act that was enacted, and Baer and I, as your investment officers, must attend a required training every 2 years, and he and I alternate. He does it 1 year, I do it the next. And so we have those trainings up to date and current. And it basically outlines the type of instruments that we can, as a school district, invest in. That's CD local, for instance, on the very first page, 1 of 4. And mostly what we do, even though there's more things here that are approved that we could do, we do the public funds investment pools. That's text pool. We have a small amount in there now, about $250,000. That's the fund that we initially invested the bond funds. When those were released, they went into a text pool account, but now those have all been spent out. And then the other would be certificates of deposit, which is number 2. And number 3 is fully collateralized, not purchase agreements. They're basically they're bank DDA, demand deposit accounts, that are backed by assets. And so they pledge certain assets to us, anything over the 250,000 FDIC. And we get a report on those pledged assets every month. And Baer and I sign off on that report, make sure we've looked at it and that that it's okay, and that they are providing us with enough security for our assets. And then we do the quarterly report to y'all. That's an investment report that we do once a quarter. The next one will be due for November 30, at the end of this month, and that one will be on your December board agenda. So there's nothing that we do that's illegal. It's out of bounds with this. I think I did share with you in that report, that summary report, as a reminder that back in December of 16, the school board did approve us investing up to $5 million in certificates of deposit with a maturity of 1 to 5 years, 4 weeks to 5 years. And currently, because of lower interest rates that we've been receiving from the bank, we have increased the amount of exposure that we've placed on CDs, and currently we have about $4.7 million invested in certificates of deposit, which has been a great help. And they're nothing over 1 year maturity, and they've been a great help in allowing our overall portfolio interest to be much better than it would have been otherwise. And then June of 19, you approved Barrett and myself as the district official investment officers. CDA legal is a little bit, has more detail on it, more pages. It goes into more detail in terms of the instruments that we're allowed to invest in. It even talks here at length on page 7 about the quarterly investment reports. That is a requirement. And let's see, selection of broker. We had selected a broker, and I think I mentioned that in the summary page. His name is Randall Chuneau, and he's the managing director of Investors Brokerage of Texas out of Waco. He's our broker on those CDs. Yeah, let's see, I don't think there's anything else I have to report. We can even do mutual funds, but we don't. Anyway, we recommend as your officers, investment officers, that we continue with the same policies. It's worked very good for us. It's been approved by TASB, and it's the same one we've had the last 2 years. So, board, we are recommending that you approve this policy again tonight for another year.
Any other questions? All 4? I'm going to need somebody to nominate and approve. Okay, Jimmy. Second. Charles. Vote, all 4. Anyone against? It's approved.
Okay.
Go do the resolution.
Just y'all sign that, that resolution. All right, this kind of has to do with investments, sort of. This has to do with our debt, and specifically our 2013 bond, which was the first one we issued for the elementary school. We did the 2013 bond like in December, and the 2014 bond, we did it like in January, February. 2013 bond, I'm sure you've noticed the low interest rates that are existent now in the market. And the 2013 bond came due a couple years ago where it was available to us to refinance it. Now, the others are not due any refinancing at this point, but this one is. This one we can refinance if we want to. So the average bond rate on the 2013 bonds is 2.02 to 3.23. The current refinancing, it will be in the range of 0.46 to 1.51. So a significant difference. What it actually means to us is a savings of over $330,000 over the remaining period of this bond. Now we do, as part of this package, do intend to invest $500,000 out of our INS bond fund balance, and it currently has about $800,000 in fund balance, and the $300,000 that will be left will be plenty sufficient to allow us to service the debt in the coming years. So I know every once in a while one of you might be asking about our fund balance. What are we going to do with that fund balance? Well, here it goes. And we're going to do it to help reduce our debt and to lower the interest to the community for over $300,000. So that's a good deal. Also, we are going to shave off a whole year off of the term of that 2013 bond. So instead of it maturing in 2029, now it's going to mature in 2028. So that's really a good thing. Now, in order to effect this, we're using our bond advisor, Brian Grubbs, who's helped us on just most of the bonds that we've had. And he will be presenting it to you, answering any questions you may have. And we did insert into the board book his time frame in here, as well as the refinancing chart that shows you how it's going to get refinanced and how the savings is going to take place. So Brian is here from Plano or Allen?
Frisco, Plano, yeah. I live in Salina.
Okay. He's with Samco and does a great job of managing our bond portfolio. All right, come up, Brian, it's yours. You can ask him the hard question.
Yeah, appreciate it. Well, I appreciate it. And Daryl did a great job, pretty much covered everything, but I'll show you real quick just kind of the cash flows of what we're looking at. Again, as Mr. Frazier mentioned, you've got the opportunity to refinance bonds that were previously issued because we have similar to when homeowners refinance their home mortgage. You locked in an interest rate back in 2013 that we can take out, replace it with a lower interest rate, and save the district money on their overall payment. So with that, let's turn behind tab 1. You'll see a chart that you've seen from me before in previous presentation material. It's called the Bond Buyers Index of Municipal Bonds. This is a national index that is tracked weekly. You can see to the far right, this particular index updated last Friday at a 2.10%. The record in this market, in this index, was hit back in August of 20 at a 2.02. The bottom line here is that our interest rates have just been bouncing around at record low levels for quite some time. So we're in a good position to take advantage of that today. Behind tab 2 is a look at the school district's outstanding voted bond or INS debt service. We've got under column 1 your fiscal year ending, and then each of the individual series that you have outstandings in 2, 3, and 4 with your total bond payment under column 5. You'll notice in under column 2, this is the series that we're looking to refinance. These are the bonds that we sold in 2013. They become callable. They are currently callable right now. The callable principal amount is just under $5.8 million. with an average interest rate of 2.96%. Now, when we refinance these, we will not extend the term. In fact, what we're going to do is we're going to take that last payment year of 29 and we're going to try to shorten it up to 28 or as short as we can based on the bids that we get. So we're going to take out the old interest rates. We're actually going to pay off $500,000 of principal on this note, okay, with the existing INS fund balance that you have, as well as shorten up the debt service, and I'll show you those in a moment. Once we complete this transaction, if you look under column 3, your next available opportunity to do this is with the 2014s. However, those do not become callable until August of 23. So we're looking at the spring of 23 as an opportunity to do that. If interest rates hold anywhere close to where they're at, I'll be back to you, giving you a similar opportunity to refinance, possibly shorten it up, possibly pay some off. Then the 2020 bonds are not callable until February of 2030. Moving on to tab 3, which is a look at the scenario itself. Again, we're looking at a November current refunding of the 2013 bonds. The summary of the parameters there in the middle. We talked about this represents a little under $5.8 million of principal. We will be using $500,000 of the cash that you have currently on hand to do this. You will still be left with a very healthy INS fund balance even using those funds. But in total, we're looking, summarized here in the box towards 2/3 of the way down, there's a total debt service savings of $831,000 approximately. That includes the $500,000 that you're putting in to pay down principal. So we're looking at a net debt service savings of around $331,000. Now, the statistic to the far right, that 4.46, this is how we measure from an industry standpoint our refinancing, the amount of savings that we get as a percentage of the principal that we're taking out. If we can achieve something that is north of 3%, that's something that we bring to our administrators and then we bring to our boards to get your authorization for us to move forward. Now, you're authorizing us to move forward. If I walk out of here and tomorrow the market goes crazy and an interest rate spike for some unforeseen reason, you're not obligated to complete the transaction. If we can't do something that's at or better than what you're looking at today, we don't do anything. I think that's very, very unlikely. I think we're going to actually be better than what I'm showing you here today, but you're not on the hook for anything if we can't achieve the savings that we're talking about today. Now, with that said, let's look at page 2 real quick. These are the actual cash flows themselves. So under column 1, you've got your fiscal year ending. Column 2 is your outstanding debt service currently as it is, okay? Column 3 is the debt services that we're taking out, the higher interest rate. We're replacing it with lower interest rate debt service under column 4. If you'll notice that tail end of that last year, we're removing completely. So under column 5 in red, into the bottom of column 5, you see that aggregate savings of $831,000 minus the 500, and so that's how we come up with the 331. Now, the reason that there is negative savings in the first few years is because we are structuring the debt service and allowing us to shorten this by assuming that your tax base of $1 billion at your current tax rate of the 20.5, you actually have a few extra dollars that you have built in at that tax rate. So we're going to take advantage. That's the part of it that's allowing us to shorten up the debt service. Now, you took a pretty substantial jump in the tax base. Now, if you continue that trend, because I'm not assuming that that trend continues, when we get to that next bond in August of 23, you probably are going to have built up a lot more INS fund balance, or we can continue to shorten up that debt service as well. So we're trying to lower the payments, reduce the principal as much as we can, given where interest rates are. But you're in a very good position, basically what you told the voters back with the last election and where you are currently from a debt service profile. And then lastly is the schedule of events. I think that's already in your board book. We have done a lot of the legwork. Obviously, we're here this evening trying to get your authorization to proceed. We will take a look at the market, but we could be in the market as early as this week. Obviously, it's going to be subject to the market conditions, making sure that we can achieve the level of savings. But the order itself tonight is good for 6 months. So if we can't do that this week, we will continue to monitor it, and we will lock this in as soon as we can, either be at or greater than the savings we've presented this evening. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you have for me this evening.
Great news.
Well, our motion is that we recommend proceeding with refinancing the 2013 bonds as proposed.
I move we do.
All for? Anybody against?
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you
Brian,
all very
thank you.
much.
That was good news, Brian. We have another guest here, and Shane, would you mind letting Nancy go next so we can get Nathan out here a little bit quicker? Brian, drive carefully.
I will.
Appreciate it.
Chief Gilkey was able to be here tonight, and so we'll try to get him. I won't be as exciting as all the money stuff, but it does involve some money, so here we go. Usually in the spring or late the end of the school year, we review our agreement with the city pertaining to SROs and in our interlocal agreement. And after the last one was reviewed by the board, over the summer we hired a sergeant, or we promoted from within essentially, but we named a sergeant, and that comes with some salary changes, and then you mix in some changes with comp time on the city side of things, and it was just a good time to look at this interlocal agreement again and revisit it. And Chief, we worked together, kind of unified to kind of figure out what the best policy or the best practice is, the best procedures are for us to move forward with this. And so you have in your packet the entire interlocal agreement amendment, and I'll just kind of read the highlights. The purpose of the amendment is to help both parties better budget for overtime, comp time, and the overall work schedule for these officers. It'll help us on the school district side to budget because we have one payment each month as opposed to this for a car and this for overtime and this for a uniform this month. It's one payment, the total payment divided by 9, and that's what we would pay each month. The full proposed amendment is attached. As I said, the cost for this agreement states that the Gatesville ISD agrees to pay as a consideration for the services provided pursuant to this agreement, aggregated budget, salary and benefits, uniform and equipment, and vehicle costs for 5 officers for 37 weeks. And the total cost for those 37 weeks is $268,777. And for comparison, we currently budget $255,000. So it's not a huge increase, but it is a bit of an increase. And so before I guess I make any recommendations, do you have any questions for Chief Gilkey or myself or Dr. Pollard on how we came about this?
What duties do the officers have at the school?
During the school day, their main duty is to be visible and deter any misbehavior by proximity control. And just being visible, being seen, having the squad cars parked outside. But they're an officer. They have the same duties as an officer does. We don't assign them specific school duties like lunch duty or, so a couple of them, Mr. Stiles, Sergeant Stiles at the elementary and Officer Brown at the primary really like to help with pick up and drop off before and after school. And they work with their principals to do that. But I don't know if that answers your question. We don't assign, is there a specific duty you're asking about?
Well, if you have say a fight in a school, what authority do they have? Can they issue a ticket?
That state law prevents them from issuing a ticket because it's a Class C misdemeanor. And there was a legislative update, a state law that was passed. I'm not sure how long ago. I'm not sure if it was when you were principal. I know for sure when I was principal.
It's been probably 6 years or so, 6-7 years.
And you may be able to speak to this too, Chief. You take anything that's a Class C misdemeanor, drug paraphernalia, fighting, MIP, any of that stuff, you cannot issue a citation to a student on campus for those offenses. And so they cannot issue a citation for that.
Are they allowed to intervene and break up a fight?
Yeah, I mean they can help separate the students, and we try to be delicate in those situations as best we can to protect the safety of everyone involved. But at the same time, you don't want to wrestle a student to the ground if you don't have to. But yes, they can help step in, and usually the which I'm not on the campus anymore, but the course of action was you get a call on the radio or the phone, there's a fight in the courtyard or in the parking lot, and you grab one of them with you, the SRO with you, and you both head that way to separate and do crowd control, whatever you have to do in that situation.
And what's the length of this agreement?
It is for 3 years or 5 years, I can't remember.
5-year contract. It's the same contract as we had previously. Just extended another
My personal opinion is I'd like the school to have their own police department.
Yeah.
I hate to appear ignorant, but I guess I am. That just seems like a whole lot of money, and it's not enough. I mean, we budget $255 and they want $267. And what I'm hearing you say is essentially they're just a physical presence, but they have no authority to really do anything.
That's not our call. I don't. I mean that, but yeah, the state is really limited what they can and can't do on school grounds.
I understand. That's
Well,
$250,000.
Let me clarify a little bit. So they don't maybe issue a citation per se, but there's a lot of times, especially at the high school, when there's a misbehavior, there's also a criminal element to it. And those guys are extremely helpful in helping us navigate all the legal side of it and what the police department is going to say. And so having them there is extremely helpful. The other thing that the impetus behind them here too is just the massive amount of school violence that we're seeing across the nation. You know, there at one point when we first instituted this, there was a school shooting every other day. And I wanted to make a point, because we were toying with the idea, well, let's arm the teachers. I personally thought that was a bad idea. I think, Nathan, you did too, because of just the potential for an accident. So these guys, here's another thing that they prevent so much. Before we had those SROs, the constant fighting between divorced parents, and no, it's my turn to see them, it's my turn to go to lunch, it's not your turn, and that really escalates very quickly. And having the police officers there helps to stem a lot of that. And so I feel like that they've been a great addition, and I think all the principals would agree too.
I know as a campus principal, I really loved having one there on our campus, because I went through a period where we had one for the district and then one for each campus. I was there for both of those phases, and while it is frustrating that they can't write a ticket for something that you would get a ticket for at Bush's, they're just them in the room while you're having a conversation with an upset parent or a student is very valuable.
I understand. I don't want to compromise the safety. I don't want to give you the impression of compromising the safety of the school, students, teachers, staff anyway. But $255,000 is a lot of money to me for 39 weeks.
Absolutely.
And they're over it by nearly 20,000. I mean, 20,000 is a lot of money to me. And
That's for 5 people.
Is there a way to?
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the increases, and maybe you can speak to the increases.
So basically,
the salaries is
the increases in salaries. We did this agreement back in, was it 2-3 years ago, I think, and we've not raised that cost at all. And so understand that you have 5 police officers up here, and there are salary increases that the city gives, you know, annually, the COLA increases and things like that. So that's pretty much what we're looking for here. Now, one of the other components to this is that we're giving the school district overtime also within this contract. I think we spend anywhere from 5 to 7 hours a week, usually in overtime, that the school district actually does comp time for. We don't do comp time very well at the city, so that is actually factored into this agreement.
Okay,
as well.
if we're getting free overtime, I'll go for that.
So there's a little bit of cost, or not cost savings, but a little bit factored into the agreement at that point.
So if they have to cover up a football game or whatever, be there.
So
that is factored in, and we don't pay.
The SROs are actually, they're in the agreement, or they work 8 hours a day. That's all they can work. Anything over that is considered to be overtime. And that should be the same with any other job that you do. So we have them on a set schedule, I believe. Usually it's from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. We have a couple of them that come in early in the morning to help with, you know, drop off and things like that.
The different campuses have different pickup and drop off times, so we do modify.
Don't get me wrong. All I've heard is good things.
No, I got you. And these are good questions that you have, and it is a lot of money. So you need to be comfortable paying that. the thing about SROs, I mean, some of the things that we do with the school district or the home visits, when they go out to the different homes, when they have truancy issues, the officers go with them. So it is a security issue. It's a safety issue for your entire school district. You have one police officer stationed at each campus. I will tell you this, during the time that this contract has been in place, we don't have near as many calls. The police department doesn't see near as many calls to the school district as we did prior to this program being implemented. Our SROs are on campus. They're able to take care of those calls, those complaints, those investigations. All of that is done here on site by them. Irate parents, oh my gosh, yes. You have irate parents that come up here nearly on a daily basis, and our SROs are able to help the school district deal with those. So it is a benefit, it is a cost associated with that benefit, but we see it from the school district, from the police department side, we see it as a win-win on both sides.
And I guess to answer specifically your question, the football games is an extra duty, and that's open to anyone in the police department. The overtime that we're talking about here is more of we had to go to a home visit after school because we had an issue, and when it took an hour of extra time. We're not now getting billed for that 1 hour. Is that the agreement?
And I don't know if you showed them the salaries and things like that, but that's there as well. So.
I have a question. Who is in charge of all? Who do you answer to? Who are the officers? Do they answer to you? Or do they answer to you? Or who do they answer
Well,
to?
there's kind of a chain of command. Officer Stiles is their sergeant. And then they report to Yancey and Scott on the school side and me ultimately. And then on the police side, it goes to Nathan. And of course...
So they have several different people that look after them. What we've done, since we have 5 SROs up here, we've created one as a supervisory position so that those SROs can go to him with questions and things that they have. And then he can kind of relay that between the school district and the police department. But Dr. Sanderson is I believe, the immediate supervisor on campus, on the school side, and then I would be on the police side. So.
And the 37 weeks kind of plays into that too. Thanksgiving break's coming up, right? Well, we don't have school. We don't want to be paying those guys that week, and so they go back to work for the department during that week. Spring break, Christmas break, those kind of things during the school year.
If we ever need to save money on personnel, in my opinion, it won't be with SROs.
No.
As a parent, I'm with you, Cheyenne, because
every penny.
if you ever have a school shooting and that camera and microphone gets put in your face, and you're thinking to yourself, man, if we just had to cut those SROs.
That's right.
So they're going to be here for the long term.
I feel so much better knowing that I'm dropping my children off and there's somebody there watching.
Well, I like
it's a good program.
Working relationship that you have, that you've just solved a lot of issues just between the two of you that help.
There's a lot of collaboration going on behind the scenes and on their part and our part as well. So just to make sure.
And we have we have an SRO that's not here right now. We're one night, we won't pay for him for the time that he's not here at the school, and so that's accounted for in the agreement. So it's this year it won't be the full 260, 68 or whatever that number is because he's not here.
I have another question. I'm sorry, and it was
that's what we're here for.
As Alderson said, and I'm not by no means. Would it be easier to have our own?
So there is a cost associated with creating your own police force. I have not went through that cost, but I will tell you that it is greater than what you pay in a contract price.
Of course you don't say. I'm not saying.
So no. So I mean, that's something. If that's an avenue you want to explore, I would certainly encourage that. But there's a lot of equipment to buy. There's vehicles, cars, or vehicles, all the equipment that goes along with it, your time, your insurance, those types of things. You've got to look at all of that. That it's doable, but there's an enormous cost that's associated with starting up a police department. So.
Well, I just heard it's just different. I'm not saying it is. A pair of lips can say anything, so they come tell me their side.
Sure.
That's sure.
Nathan, I would like to do that and make myself the chief of police.
At the Dr. Baer police station.
Now, Nathan and I have talked about that before. We really think the setup we have right now is just fine, and it's a great question, but it's a big leap.
We want to be fair with the school district. You know, the price increase is mainly due to salaries this year. We're trying to recoup some of that cost, so. But certainly, we sat down with this agreement prior to going through this, and we want to be fair. The city is, even with our finance director, we're throwing things into this contract just as the school is. So.
I am glad that we do have an officer that, you know, I definitely like the idea of having armed teachers. It could have been a disaster to me.
It could have been.
I really appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Well, it's my recommendation the board approve the amendments to the interlocal agreement for the SROs.
Is there any discussion? Anybody want to?
I'll make a motion.
Make a motion? Okay. Linda makes the motion. Lee second. All for? You got your money.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Good questions too. That's a good conversation.
Thank you all. Anytime you have any questions about the SRO program, want to sit down with me and visit about it, please give me a call. I'll be more than happy to talk with any of you. So.
Thank you.
If we have any speeding tickets, thank you.
That's different level.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Hello. We've been talking with the high school. We've been kind of thinking about this for a few years, but I decided maybe it's time to go ahead and take that leap. But currently in our EIF local policy, which is about graduation requirements, Gatesville ISD requires a student to earn 2 additional credits more than the state does. And so a lot of districts, most districts, only require what the state requirement is, which is 22 for foundation only, or 24 credits with endorsements. And so we're looking at wanting to erase those or take away those 2 additional credits our students have to earn to give more flexibility for a student for different reasons. And typically the credits our kids are taking above the state requirement are in health, speech, and world geography. Currently, all of our 8th grade students are taking health. And so that wouldn't change. We would still continue to give all of our 8th grade students would still take the high school health credit. It would still be a high school credit. It just wouldn't be a requirement that they would have to have. What this does is a lot of times we have kids that come in and enroll with us as sophomore, a junior, or a senior, and they don't have their health credit, and it's kind of hard for them to recoup that. And so that's really the impetus behind that. Speech is another one. Speech is a credit you still have to have, but you can award it after taking another class, such as some CTE courses, English classes, and so we're actually looking at that to maybe see if we can maybe even get another CTE pathway possibly out of that. And so what our recommendation is, what we would do is we would award speech credit after the completion of their 3rd English, so after English 3. And then world geography is another one. The state says you don't have to have world geography, but this would be a counselor thing where a counselor would still push, we would still push every kid as a freshman would still take world geography. What this does is it down the road, if a kid can't complete their 2 required credits of foreign language, it allows you to substitute something. And so you can use world geography as a substitute, and sometimes you can use maybe a CTE course, but this would just allow some more flexibility in graduation requirements. Does anybody have any questions about that? I hope. Yes, Cal.
Would that mean you're going to be eliminating those teachers who teach health and speech and world geography?
No, we'd have other plans like speech. What we would like to do is turn that into another CTE course.
So those teachers be teaching that? What I'm asking.
Mm-hmm. They would, yeah. We would still have the dual credit speech that we currently offer. It just wouldn't be a graduation requirement. You're thinking about probably like Jenny Mabry teaches speech at the high school. maybe we would do something different, or maybe we would be able to add another CTE pathway with that position. Health, we're kind of already phasing out. We're only, since all 8th graders are taking it now, you only need about 1 section a year. And so, that we replace that with PALS, or they may, we need lots of PE help sometimes. And so there's other places for those staff members to go.
I have a problem with this, and the reason I have a problem, it's outdated, number one, by the state, because this graduation requirement was based upon a 6-period day. We have 8 periods, correct?
We do.
All right, and if they're taking 8 courses and they get 1 credit per course, if they pass it, 8 times 4 is 32 hours that the kids could make in 4 years. And they only need 22, and we're going to reduce it to 20.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
And on top of that, if you were a teacher and I'm teaching one of these classes here that's not required, I used to really get aggravated to this when that kid would say, oh, I don't have to have this to graduate, so I'm not going to do your work. And they're right.
Well, you got to think about, if you're going to college, you need to have probably 4 years of social studies.
Well, you don't have that problem with the college kids.
Yeah, and it'll also be an endorsement. You have 4 years of social studies, that counts as an endorsement, so that counts as a foundations with endorsement, so that gets you that's also another graduation requirement.
But I'm talking about the kids that's not going to college, and that's going to be a bunch. And you're giving them 10 courses they can fail.
Well,
as long as you have a kid that might be required.
Right. Let's say you have a kid that takes 4 years of athletics. They don't have to have all 4 years of those athletics classes. So, they're taking that class, or 4 years of band. They don't need all of those credits. Not all those classes will count toward their graduation.
Correct. But you still have a bunch. That's the reason why you're having seniors. It's actually a lot of kids graduate at the end of their junior year.
Well, all these kids are taking health already in 8th grade. That's already happening.
And that's good. I like Spanish, it used to be 8th grade and credit, and then finish it up the 2nd year, which gave your kids that was college bound, they gave them extra GT classes, that accelerate classes that they could take that they couldn't do back in the old days when it was a 6-period day. It's just too many. Yeah. It's too much slack.
And these are electives too. These kids will, instead of going into health or speech, they'll be going into another CTE course. Learning a skill. Where they're getting a certification, and also that can be CTE funding as well.
Well, rather than requiring, dropping this, why doesn't the district, if you're going to take away 2, let's add 4 and add CTE classes. That's a local requirement.
Right. Well,
I think our concern is for the students that are at risk. We've got an additional barrier there that the state is not even requiring. And so as we struggle with kids that are dropping out, we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that there's not something we could do to help them.
And we have, I don't know how many kids we probably have who did not earn credits last year because they were virtual. And so, English 1 classes, you probably had to build 2 or 3 more sections than you normally would have to have. Or Algebra 1, or U.S. history, or geometry. And so, we're in a position too where kids are struggling to get all of their credits because of the pandemic and just virtual learning, on top of that. But it does add another barrier to a kid who struggles to get through 2 years of Spanish. It allows you to use world geography as a substitute.
And I like that.
Our kids are already taking health. Speech would allow us to get, eliminating the speech might allow us to get another teacher where we can move it into the CTE realm. The kids are, it would just remove some barriers.
Our enrollment has dropped primarily because of the high school, where we have students that were remote last year. They got used to it. They came back to school and it was difficult to try to readjust. And so we've probably had 45
Yes, sir.
I'm thinking,
that have said we are withdrawing to quote unquote homeschool. Now, we just take their word for it. But how many of those students are really legitimately going to do a homeschool program, finish out their high school career and get a diploma, and how many are just going to go drop out?
But when they have 10 courses that they can fail, they've got a lot of slack where they can still graduate with their class. Because all they have to do is get the required courses.
Are you mainly concerned if you're the teacher of a course that's not needed, quote unquote, that they're going to misbehave? Is that what you're thinking? They're just going to...
More than likely just not do their work. And you're up there trying to teach, and we ain't gonna do that.
I would think the biggest concern would probably be in world geography. But those kids are taking it as freshmen. I don't know that a freshman can see that far sometimes.
I don't know of any course right now that has horrible failure rates because the kids are saying, nah. Marie, can you think of any like that are...
No, sir.
Do you think your teachers would have any issue, or I know counselors have really advocated for moving to this as well?
I think when you look at our graduation plans and they're actually lined up over this is what a freshman takes, this is what a sophomore takes, and so on, you really start seeing some of the obstacles that come in way with endorsements and if they're in extracurricular activities and things like that. With speech, it really is a multimedia pathway with CTE, so there's more classes we could add in for speech basically and fall in the CTE realm. World geography, our teacher in there, we don't have a lot of, we have a lot of CTE electives, we don't have a lot of academic based electives, and we were able to add psychology and sociology for our world geography teacher, and she absolutely loves it and the kids love it. It's absolutely the #1 requested course that we are filled with, and kids are still wanting to come into that class because they're enjoying it and it's fascinating. So she's doing world geography and sociology and psychology. As Mr. Webb said, freshmen coming in, especially being college bound, you would need to take your world geography still. That teacher has been able to balance all 3 of those courses so far, and the numbers have been good. And then I'm trying to think, what was the other one? Health. Most of our kids already have that credit coming in, but we do get into a very negative situation with kids that move here and they don't have that, especially we've gotten a lot of transfers that are, upperclassmen, and it's hard to fold that in and get it in there. So.
There was a time you had a lot of vocational training, and the state went the other way. It was all academic, very little. Now the pendulum has swung back the other way to CTE classes, and that's great. I mean, I'm advocating we give them some more courses in CTE rather than academic.
That's kind of what you're talking about.
That's what would happen naturally.
That's where they would naturally go. Is they would instead of taking that health class or that speech that's taking up a class period, they're sitting in another career tech course.
Yeah.
Because all of our electives, primarily for the most part, fall under the CTE umbrella, other than your band and sports.
I'm getting overlooked. Okay.
Raise your hand up.
I don't know, I'm just joking. So 2 questions. Number 1, I'm just an advocate for speech. I just think that I wish that would have been something they offered when I was in school, and that was not. And so, are you saying they would still have
They would earn
access
the credit.
to that?
They just wouldn't take the class. Now, we could still offer it as an elective. That if you just want to take the class, we could still do that. But we're just saying you would earn the credit after the completion of English 3, because they should be doing lots of speaking in their CTE courses or presentations in their English classes. I mean, they should be getting a lot of that.
Okay, so that's my first question. Second question, I'm sorry if I'm not connecting dots, but is this not what we talked about with the WINGS program?
Yes.
This is that, okay. Okay. To help them.
It would help, yeah. Okay. I mean, you run into some kids struggle to get through foreign language, 2 years of foreign language, and so the world geography allows a kid to be able to do that.
Okay.
It also
Isn't
helps.
that what they were?
Yes, it's exactly right, Cheyenne. It's a numbers thing because wings can only accommodate 12 kids at a time. and like I said, in the first semester, we lost 45.
Okay.
We're just trying to save more kids.
Any other questions? Do you have anything else you want to add?
No.
I don't think it's, watering it down, or if it was going below what the state was requiring, obviously that would be a red flag. But if we're just meeting what most other districts are already doing, what the state recommends, I think going above and beyond, having more requirements, especially in the age of COVID and all this other stuff where kids are dropping like flies, I would prefer to just have the minimal requirement. No artificial barriers.
How many courses of English they have to have in high school now?
4.
They have to have all 4. Still 3 math and science?
If they're on the foundation only.
Did you make the recommendation?
I have not. So, and we're recommending these changes beginning with the 2022-2023 school year. And the reason is we can make these changes, they can be effective now. They can go in effect, because as long as we're taking something away, we don't have to start it with the next class. If we're adding something, it would start with the incoming freshman class. And so, but recommending it for to start of the next school year, because it becomes a scheduling issue. There's kids that are scheduled to take speech and health, and it just becomes a big issue. So we'll still keep those requirements in. So.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
The speech one, Ms. Kaiser, so there is, if you go through the CTE route, there's journalism, there's speech, there's videography. That teacher already does yearbook. It calls it a different name, but it folds it in with those pieces, and so it's there. It just allows more classes in that pathway to continue, because right now it's speech, and we're just done.
Okay.
It allows all of those things to be united. So.
Thank you.
My recommendation is to approve the EIF local policy as presented.
You might recommend that we accept that? Okay, we have, yes. And then anybody second?
So who's put the motion?
I did.
Okay.
I say you say.
Okay.
You second the motion, Linda.
Linda or Calvin?
You can go ahead, the ladies first. Ladies first.
I'll tell you what you can do, Mr. Alderson. We can evaluate it and then see if that's something we need to start adding back again.
It's a case you've got a state requirement of 22, and the kids can have 32. That's and when I graduated with the dinosaurs, I think I had a credit and a half extra. It never failed a course.
Think of it this way, like a senior's probably typically going to get 2 periods of early release their senior year, so you're down to 30. If you got a kid who's taken 4 years of band, you only need 2 years of band, so that knocks it down to 28. If they're taking 4 years of athletics, they don't need all 4 years of athletics, so we're cutting those numbers down already, and so.
I'd like to see us add 2 rather than take away. I think we need to be a little more rigid. We're giving the kids too much too easy. It gets a little hard, we back off and give them the easy way out. I mean, if you're going to earn it, make them earn it. That's my opinion.
We have a recommendation and a second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? All right.
Thank you.
At least he didn't ask for money.
It's been a while.
That would have been a real slap in the face if he asked for money right after that.
Okay.
We can save money by turning this hair off, because I'm free.
It's feast or famine in here. So speaking of money, we've got some good news. So, as we've talked about, we've gotten a $20 million really nice high school. We reduced the tax rate 10 cents. And now we came in under budget to some extent, and the change order for Masonic is the amount of $292,732 that wasn't needed for the completion. And so we've already made the final payment to them and to WRA, so we've paid all them off. And so, but by formality, we need you guys to approve this final change order. And then I was gonna ask Daryl, did you ever get a final fund balance number that's going in? What's the range? You wanna tell them the range?
Give me the range. After the high school reno is gonna be 2 to 2.5. But we're taking a lot out of fund balance for the high school reno. But a substantial part of that 2 million is the SR 2 grant that was given to us this past year.
So still
so it's gonna be,
that's a sizable amount of money.
Would have been.
Yeah.
But we're still lowering the fund balance pretty significantly as a result of the high school renovation. But that was planned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to spend.
I'd like to compliment y'all. Great job.
Yeah.
Great job.
Principal, high school, how's it going there with this new building? Is it workable? Is it everything you dreamed of?
And then some.
It's very workable. Everything's going great. We've had some issues, but we've got them corrected.
Kids are taking care of it?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful.
Speaking of fund balance, can I say one more? I'm happy to report that the food service program did make a profit this past fiscal year, almost 100,000. And so I know our lady here from SFE is here.
Daryl, in all of your time here, has it ever been in the black?
No.
So
Before
think about
we went
that.
to food service companies, it was approaching 300,000 loss and growing. And then we cut it, pretty good first couple years, and then we sort of settled in around 50 to 100,000 loss every year, and never could get out of that. But this year is the first year that we're going to show a $100,000 profit in the food service. Cool.
That's great.
So I'm very proud of that.
So I recommend the board approve the final change order to the high school renovation project, which no longer requires $292,732 as part of the cost.
All right, recommendation, okay?
I move.
Second? I'll second it.
We just paid for the safety stuff.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
All for the motion? All, anyone opposed? No one opposed.
All right. Well, I think it was last month we nominated Andy James for the CCAD, the Coryell County CAD Board of Directors. And so this month, by procedure, we're supposed to decide formally if we want to allocate all 862 votes towards Andy. And so that's what we're here tonight to do, the second part of that process. And so we're entitled as an entity to have 862 votes. We can cast it all of our votes for that one person. That's what we've done in years past. We used to do that towards like Teresa Johnson. And so tonight I would recommend that we go ahead and allocate all 862 for Andy James.
Does anybody want to make that motion? Okay, we have a motion. Anybody want to second it? And we have a second. All for? Anyone opposed? Woo-hoo, Andy. Board activity calendar.
All right, so this, in our board activity calendar, we look at this occasionally. If you're up on the screen here, in February, we were supposed to look at administrator contract renewals. And in parentheses, we list some of these positions: assistant superintendent, CFO, principals, assistant principals, athletic director, band director. Now, we've had a little bit of discussion about whether or not an assistant band director or an assistant athletic director should be included in this group. And so I've kind of thought about it some. I feel like that the assistant athletic director certainly performs administrative type duties. Assistant band directors, those three folks, I would really consider more like teachers. But if y'all want to include that title in there as well, you can. I didn't write a specific motion. I just left it up to you guys to talk and let me know what you think.
I agree.
I agree that it stands as it is.
Yeah, whatever you think.
There you have it.
So just leave it up.
Wait.
Wait.
adding those, or you're talking
No,
about?
I agree with what you're saying, that to keep the assistant athletic director in that
group.
And then
To
move the
keep-
But
assistant.
don't have Baer.
Add in there.
Yes, that's what.
Add it.
So my motion would be to, in parentheses, add assistant athletic director.
Do I hear a person that would like to recommend that motion?
I will.
Calvin, and second would be Mary Ann.
Second.
All for? Anyone against?
Okay, policy update 118, this is the super exciting part here. Where's my Joe Biden, what am I doing here? Here we go. Sorry. Here we go. So the quick synopsis of this is that TASB basically every so often, pretty regularly, gives us updates on policies to update. And so there are legal guidance. So them plus Eichelbaum Wardell, our legal firm, they give us all the really pertinent, good legal advice to make sure we stay out of trouble. And so local policies require a little bit more attention, but like Daryl had mentioned in his presentation, the legal ones, basically that's, you keep those as is. And so I provided a brief synopsis of each one of those. Let's see how many that they updated. There were 11. And so it's just a myriad of different topics to where TASB looks at something and says, okay, let's word something a little bit differently. And so we always take their advice. We typically don't challenge what TASB says. And so my motion would be to accept the recommendations by TASB as they presented them to us in that packet.
Any discussion about that? Anybody want to make the motion to recommend? Okay, Mary Ann. And a seconded by, okay, got it? Okay. Next.
All those in favor? Raise your hand. All those in favor?
All in favor?
He's getting the hang of it.
I'm trying to move this thing on.
I love your style.
Well, that's all I have.
Yep, so that's
Have a motion, do we need to make a motion?
So,
You want to do executive session?
So what time is it? 7:03?
7:03. It's 7:03. Does anybody make a recommendation that we go into executive session?
You can't trust.
You just call it.
Okay, we're going into executive session.